Hey Remy, you are for this second, but I'm a couple minutes early. I imagine here we're going to have a lot of people rolling in. I am going to take, hey Punkette, yeah, take Amory off the screen just because I don't want to make it harder on Alfred. If he gives me permission, I can put her back up, but obviously. So I know everybody's going to be rolling in here. He is actually already backstage. Rena is here. Rena, you have his Snap or Snapchat. Oh my goodness. Cash App. If you could just occasionally drop that in here, that would be awesome. So, Scarlett, no, this is the interview for Hey Liberty. Thank you, Liberty. I'm going to mod a couple of people here. Whoops. Hold on one second, guys. I just want to make sure I have enough mods. Okay, Liberty's modded. All right. Punkat, I'm going to mod you. So, we talked about this earlier. I have some extra mods. This is Alfred Garza. He is Amory's dad, and he has a story to share, and we are going to honor him and respect him and listen to kind of who Amory was. And I'm very excited about this. No BS mods, you know what to do. All right, here we go. I'm adding you now, Alfred. Hey, Shawnee. Scarlett, you're fine. Hey, Alfred, how you doing?
Hey, good.
Good, good. Yeah, I mean, I wanted it to be completely comfortable. I'm glad we get to see you, but obviously, I took Amory's picture down. Am I saying her name correctly?
Amory.
Amory, okay.
Hmm.
Um, because I didn't want to make it harder on you, so,
Yeah.
but I wanted the chat to see who she was. So, first off, I really appreciate you being here. I'm glad you're relaxed on your couch because this is where I do my night, my night streams as well. So, um, people are starting to come in. I wanted to see, I've got to add Jax here. So first and foremost, so everybody knows, and so this is completely clear. I know the media has shown two different men, right? We've seen Alfred and we've seen, I don't know your cousin's name. I'm really sorry. I have
Angel.
Angel. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, Alfred is actually Amory's real dad. Not real dad, biological dad. Okay. So I want him, if you don't mind, could tell us a little bit of who she is. Who was your daughter? What'd she like? What'd she, all that good kind of stuff.
Um, so Amory was a very, very funny person. She was, I have stood by this since the first interview I given, and she was just a lot like me in a nutshell. So she was very quick-witted. She liked to joke around. She liked to play. I mean, because of my, visitation schedule and how our visits would work. I mean, our visits were mostly on the weekends, right? So for the most part, every time she would come with me, it was just, fun time. You know what I mean? It was just time to play, to visit, and how's the week going? What do you feel like doing? Stuff like that. So um, we were never serious with each other. It was very not serious. We were always just joking around playing. Of course, whenever, discipline came into play, I was big on that. I mean, and um, she was just the type. She listened to me all the time. Mom always said she always had some problems with her listening to her, but here when she was at my house, she was, she knew whenever it was time to hey,
Yeah.
this is the line. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, but she was a very beautiful. She had a very beautiful soul. She cared about others, before herself, and she just had this thing about her where she, even from an earlier age, not just now. She was 10 when she passed away, but even before that, 8 to 6, she had this sense of like, hey, she knew when things didn't feel right, and
Mhm.
if she felt, daddy was sad or mom was sad or, her aunts or whatever, she would say, "Hey, what's wrong?" You know, like she was just very aware, self-aware about her environment, and very smart. She liked art a lot, more three-dimensional. She liked to play with Play-Doh. She liked to play with kinetic sand and slime, and um, she liked to draw. She liked to color. But I mean, her favorite pastime was, I mean, the TikTok thing. I mean, that's kind of a lot of what the kids are doing now, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we didn't have that when I was her age, you know, but
Yeah.
that's what a lot of she was doing. She would make TikTok videos, and she had started her own YouTube channel. She had a couple of videos on there, and it wasn't, you know, it was just for entertainment use, but that's what
Is
she
it
was.
is it still up?
It's still up. She's got about maybe like 4 or 5 videos on there, and they
Oh,
were
we
from
need to
like,
get her we need to get her 1 million subscribers just so she could say she hit 1 million, or so she could,
yeah,
in
I didn't think
honor of
about
her.
that, but yeah, I didn't think about that, but that'd be awesome to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but that was what she liked to do. She liked to make content, and it was just her opening gifts or
Hmm.
talking about a toy or just whatever, you know.
Yeah.
That was her favorite pastime. Um, but yeah, that was her.
One thing I noticed that stuck with me, and um if I get choked up, it's because I get choked up every single time I talk about the situation. Like I
Hmm.
had talked to you about, I have a 10-year-old kid, a
Hmm.
son named Elijah, and it breaks. It just, I can't even fathom what you all go through.
Hmm.
I will say one thing that stuck with me about Amory was how she was the friend of the friend, right? We heard the story of Chloe. She was
Oh
making
yeah.
Chloe feel, safe. It sounded like she was the strong one that,
Yeah.
people, I don't know, it just, her eyes, I told you when I saw that picture of both of you, her eyes were
Hmm.
just magnifying. There was something about her that just radiated in her pictures. Um,
Hmm.
there,
And
yeah, I can't even. It,
that's actually the first thing I noticed about her when she was born, because um, I have a picture of her when, like, the first picture I took of her when she came out the womb, literally, like, just her firstborn picture. Her eyes were this big, you know, and a lot of times when babies are born, you know, they have like the eyes shut, they have the gunk and all this stuff, and she
Mhm.
was like right here. She was like, I've never seen a newborn baby with eyes that wide. Like she just had these big old brown eyes, and she was very alert and very awake. And it's
Yeah,
it's crazy. If I could show you the picture, it's crazy. She has eyes this big, and she's like just fresh out the womb, like not even 5 minutes, and she's right here. So she was. So whenever you made that comment about her eyes, I mean, I could totally see that. You know, it's what I
yeah.
saw when she was born.
They just almost sparkle, or I just, it's just nuts.
Mhm.
I do want to talk about one thing is, Alfred has kind of been, and first of all, I do want to point out a couple things. One thing is that his Cash App is up. He did not ask me to do that. I asked him to give me his Cash App. I do think that all of the parents need to have financial support. I've said that from the beginning because right now they need to be focusing on siblings, or that the child might have had, or just plain just healing. Um, that's what, as a mom, I would want that done for me. So again, his Cash App is up, and if you can, please help him out. And this again was my request. So the other thing is, Alfred is not going to get in your face, right? So he is not the media guy that is going to get in everyone's face. And part of the reason I reached out to him is because he is a dad that I feel deserves a spotlight. A lot of times when you have a couple dads, you have a stepdad or whatnot. We know Angel's been outspoken and has had a lot of recognition, but I want to make sure that we focus on some of the dads who haven't been as in the spotlight. And Alfred is one of those dads. And he has a story. He was impacted as much as anyone else. Again, his visits were on the weekend because that's not an uncommon thing. But if you saw the thumbnail I had of Alfred and Amory at Dave and Buster's, you can see they had a good time. Hi, hippie sissy. So my question for you, Alfred, if this is okay. Hey, Alex, is what was it like for you? What is it like for you now? What are some of the things? I mean, obviously we know you're heartbroken. I can't imagine, but I want you to be able you can cuss, you can do whatever, you can yell at me, I don't care. This is your time. So
Mm-hmm.
you just tell us, what is it like for you now?
No, the yelling and the cussing, that's not really my thing.
Yeah.
Like I've mentioned in several interviews that I'm trying to handle the situation with as much dignity as possible, right? The last thing I want is for my daughter to be up there and looking down on me and saying, "Hey, Dad, what the heck are you doing down there?" I don't want to disappoint her, and I want to honor her. So
Mm.
there's a process in all this stuff, right? I know that a lot of the parents, and I mean everybody wants answers, right? And I do too. I mean, I'll be the first to say, I wish we had more answers about exactly what happened that day. But I don't think we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty or get those real answers, and intricate details until the investigation's over, because I mean they've already said plenty of times that the DA is being really overprotective of this data and information that's coming in. I know we've had the leaked videos and all that stuff, but I feel like there's a lot more facts out there, and there's a lot more stuff out there that we don't know yet. Um, and that stuff's gonna come out, in due time. So my focus is on um, channeling my efforts into something where I can make a change now, or make a change period, right? I don't want to dwell on things I can't change, like the fact that I don't have the answers that I want now, and I need answers now, and this person needs to be fired, and this, I mean, I totally agree with a lot of people what they're saying. There's some people that need to, you know, there's some people that need some, we need accountability, right? There's some people out there that are to blame more than others, and unfortunately, like, I don't think a lot of that stuff's gonna come out until the investigation's over.
Mhm.
So that part I'm not worried about so much right now, because I know that if my
Mm.
daughter if my daughter could talk to me right now, she would she would put others before herself, and she would tell me, "Hey, Dad, you know what? I'm gone. I'm not coming back." But what you can do is you can make sure that you can voice for me, and you can voice to create change for the little ones that are still there, for my friends, and for all the kids that I went to school with, and make sure that they don't suffer the same fate that I did, along with the other children that died and the two teachers that passed away. So I think if she could send me a message right now, I know that's what she would be telling me, along with, "Hey, Daddy, I miss you and I love you." Aside from that, um, she know
Oof.
she would probably she would probably be the one to tell me that, like, "Hey, you need a voice for the ones that you still have there, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm gone and I ain't coming back." But yeah, we need there's some changes that need to be made, and things that need to be done. Um,
Mhm.
and it's this is not the first incident like this, right? I mean, obviously there's been lots of school shootings, and lots of people killed over this stuff, and I think as a nation and as people, we need to come together and face facts, right? There's some changes that need to be made, and they need to be done quick, because this is not getting better, it's getting worse.
Right.
And for all these things that the state and the government and the at the federal level are doing for us, it's all going to go in vain if they don't decide they want to do something about, and get to the root of the problem, which is the
Yep.
guns.
Yeah.
You know, I was seeing an interview the other day where some guy said like, "Oh, you want to sue the gun manufacturers for guns? How about let's sue a fork and spoon company for obesity, right?" Well, if somebody's obese, that's because they decided they wanted to put the fork in the right hand and the spoon in the left hand, and they wanted to eat themselves in obesity. They did that to themselves, right? They did that to themselves. What we're facing is somebody going out and buying a gun and killing other people. They're not killing themselves, they're killing other people. So that
Yeah.
that analogy wasn't accurate at all. You know, they're trying to swerve the gun thing by saying, "Hey, you want to disarm citizens? We don't want to disarm citizens," or we have a judicial system in place for people that want to break the law. Hey, these guys that go in and decide that they want to go and kill kids or kill innocent people, they don't care about the law. They're not scared of the law. They're not
No.
scared of dying, and that's a recipe for disaster. For you know, I don't care what judicial system you have in place. There's no judicial system that's gonna bring us the justice that we need, like bringing our kids back. You know that
Yeah.
the judicial system's not gonna get our kids back. So what we need to do is we need to come up with solutions that um that we can get this, we can nip it in the butt before it happens, right? That's the only way I
Yeah.
could come out
I
with it, right? we need
yeah.
to we need to do something before that bad guy gets his hands on these guns. And the bigger thing is the mental health, right?
Mm.
Well, why not do both? You know, you have all these Republicans and a lot of people that are pro-gun that want to swerve the gun law and swerve gun reform, and say it's the people, or it's a people problem, or it's the mental health. You know, it is those things, and it's more.
Mhm.
So I think what they need to do is they need to do a combination of things to get the best result. Because if they do one and don't do the other, then you know
Yep.
I just think that they need to take a better look at the gun reform. And
Mhm.
there needs to be some changes made, some real changes. Not just, hey, we have this stuff in place and we have mental health that is going out there. We don't need none of that. Mental,
Yep.
you know, mental health is, yes, I understand mental health, right? This guy, he had something wrong with him, but how do you get to that
Mhm.
before he shot his grandma and headed to the school? You can't, if there's no
Yep.
history on mental health, they're gonna sell you the gun, you
Yeah,
know.
and what we did see with him is that there was, I mean, how many mental health things did no one pay attention to? So, I mean, I mean, when you hear his story, then you go, "Oh my gosh, how did no one catch that?" Um,
Yeah. Well, I
it's
I think a big red flag was someone going in there to buy 2,000 rounds of ammunition. You got an 18-year-old kid that just turned 18, and he's buying two rifles, and
yeah,
he's buying 2,000 rounds of ammunition, and he's spending over $3,000 to $4,000. Where does a kid get money to spend like that? I mean, mommy and daddy could have gave it to him, right? But what are you planning to do with this stuff? It's like everybody says, the guy that sold him the gun isn't to blame. But what about when you're 21, you're
mhm,
perfectly legal to buy alcohol, and you go into a bar and you're already impaired, and the bartender sells you a drink after you've already been drunk, and you go out and you leave the bar and you kill somebody.
it's
Whose
true.
fault is that going to be? It was perfectly legal
That's
for them
true.
to sell them the alcohol. They're 21, right? But when they go out and kill somebody, then they want to come back and get the bartender,
That's
right? They
true.
want to get the place of business. How come we can't do that for
Yep.
guns?
Yep.
It doesn't make no sense to me. And what else don't make sense to me is that they increase the age limit of cigarettes. Hey, if an 18-year-old wants to get his hands on a cigarette and give himself lung cancer, that's his business. But when an 18-year-old is buying purchasing guns and going out and killing children, my child, then that's a problem, and that needs to be addressed, and something has to be done.
Yep. No, I mean, and you really changed my perspective because I have gotten on here several times and just gone off on once it was leaked and the footage was leaked, and how could they let this happen, and how blah 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 blah, and we didn't sign up, but you blah. And I've gone hard. I mean, we all have in this chat. But then when you said to me, if we don't do it with dignity, if we don't let the process work itself out, then the wrong punishment is going to lie in the wrong places. And that really changed my perspective of, you know what, you're right. Like, if I it's gonna fall in the wrong places. And that was definitely very eye-opening for me. And as far, the fact that the law of that when you buy an assault rifle, the sheriffs don't need to know, just the ATF. Like, that's insane. That's insane.
Hmm.
And where did he get? I mean, yeah, there's got to be red flags when you've got almost $10,000 worth of stuff. I mean, no one should be able to walk in, buy that many rounds offline, and go pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, I really think honestly, it's a big. A lot of people are saying not to blame the person that sold them this stuff, right? But we have to sit back and say, hey, there's something wrong here, right? Like this is not right. Like, who comes and buys this amount of stuff? I mean, I'm pretty
Exactly.
sure they do it all the time, right? For regular customers or people that have hunting or ranches or whatever, right? But you got an 18-year-old kid. This guy just turned 18 several days back. He's buying two
Hmm.
rifles and he's buying 2,000 rounds of ammunition. Something doesn't look right here.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Something doesn't look right, and I think that because it's legal, that doesn't mean it's right. You know what I mean?
that's a good point.
It's almost it's almost like seeing a grown man next to an elementary school, and you see him eyeballing all the kids. I mean, you're not gonna say
Hmm.
something. You know what I mean? He's not doing
It's
anything
true.
illegal. He's just across the street watching some kids, but
It's
that
true.
might be a light bulb might go off and say, hey, maybe this guy's trying to pick up a kid or something. Maybe let me
Mm.
call the cops and see if they can look into it, right? But there's a guy that's buying two guns with 2,000 rounds of ammo, and you don't think to, hey, you know what? I think I need to hold off and let me call somebody on this because this doesn't,
It's true.
something doesn't look right.
Yeah,
So it just baffles me how all this stuff came together, and it just that nobody said anything.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, even on the family side, right? Once they knew that he had the guns, I think he had the guns for several days before anything happened, right?
yes, yes.
And there was talks about him being suicidal. I mean, and then there
Well, and
was
his
talks of.
uncle, I mean, his uncle drove him twice to get it, even after, and
Mhm.
drove him after he got kicked out for having the rifles. So yeah, I mean, I have asked that question. I mean, is there
See,
accountability? I mean,
yeah, see, those are some of the details that I didn't know. I didn't know a lot of the details. I don't know if I just overlooked them or I haven't been paying attention, but somewhere, somehow, some way, there should have been one person that said, this just doesn't look right, and I need to say
I,
something. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Between the family, between somebody fulfilling the online order, saying, "Hey, he's putting an order in for two guns, or he's putting an order in for this ammo," or, I mean, I know you're not supposed to profile people, but
But come
you,
on. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, just something should have not looked right. And then
yeah.
all the messages that he was implying that he was gonna do something. I mean, nobody reported that. Like, it's just there's just a lot of errors that day in the hallway, with the cops, and as well as the people that knew those details before he even got to the school, before he even shot his grandma, before he even bought the guns, before, you know what I mean? Those are just a
Yep.
lot of red flags. Even the detail where he was looking into buying the guns illegally at 17, or having somebody else buy him the guns. Like,
I know.
why can't you wait till you're 18 to buy a gun? You've never gone hunting. You've never shown or expressed an interest in shooting a gun. Like, why do you want a gun for? Or why can't you wait till you
Yep.
turn 18? You turn 18 in several months or several days or several weeks or whatever it is. Why do you need the gun now? That's
Hmm.
that's something that I would have been like, well, what? That doesn't make sense.
Yep. I
So
agree. I agree.
I think
Yeah. I mean, you're
it's
making
failure
amazing points.
it's failure across the board, as his family members, as the person that sold him the gun,
Mm-hmm.
um, the cops, just everybody just like failed. You know, I mean, from the point to where all this got initiated to the point where even before he shot his grandma, before he even went to the school, while he was at the school, and how long it took them to shoot him. I mean, just failures
I know.
all over the place, right? And somebody made a valid point at a school board meeting. It was a lady that went up there, and she told her daughter, if you see something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
But then when us as an older generation, I call myself older generation, right? I was born in the 80s. But she
Me
said
too.
that
82.
86 right here. So she said when she was growing up, it was snitches get stitches,
Yeah.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
if I see something and I say something that's gonna prevent a death, especially to
Yes.
somebody that it just doesn't deserve it, right? I mean, just I'm gonna
Yeah.
say something. I'm gonna say something. I might even do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I might even do something. If I would have been a family member, if I had a nephew that was 18 years old and he lived in my house and I seen that this kid is like weird, because I don't have a problem calling my nephews weird,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed that there's some things that are unsettling and they're not sitting quite right, and I know that this kid shouldn't have these guns, especially in my house. I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something to him. I'm gonna say something to mom. I'm gonna say something to grandparents. I'm gonna say something to, I'm gonna ask friends. I'm gonna ask him, like, why do you want these guns?
Mm-hmm.
You've never shown expressed interest in hunting and going to the shooting range or anything like that. What are you gonna use these guns for? Why do you need two of them? And
Mm-hmm.
where did you get this money? Why would
Yep.
you, or let me ask you a better question. Why would you want to throw $3,000 or $4,000 away on ammo and guns? That's
Exactly.
crazy. People my
Exactly.
age, if you would have gave me $4,000 when I was 18 years old, I would have been buying clothes. I would have been buying rims for my car. I would have
Yes.
taken a trip. I would have done things like that. You would think a normal person would have spent that money somewhere else, like doing something else, or
Mm-hmm.
just something else. Like, that's just
Yep.
ridiculous, to spend that kind of money on
Yep.
that kind of stuff. So, I just don't know. I don't know. It's all disheartening, and it's just a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things went wrong, and a lot of people didn't say something in the right time.
Yeah, and the I shared an interview here a while back that a mother had given on, I think it was the Today Show, where just recently she had found out her son had bought guns or written some letters that was questionable, and she turned them in. And I mean,
Hmm.
through tears, she was weeping and said it was the hardest thing she ever did, but it saved lives, and he ended up getting the help he needed. And it was I mean, and they are good now. He understands now, but at the moment it was, he was never going to talk to her again, but it saved lives. And she turned her own son in because
Hmm.
for that reason, she said he goes to school and those children there, those are my friends' kids. And I just think that, a lot can be learned from that was her own son. And we know had somebody said something even about their nephew, this would have been most likely a different outcome. Um, but I,
Yeah, it's just in that instance, what I find that's tough love. You know what I mean? Like, um, I mean, I think the only person that may not have said something are those parents that are scared to give their kids a ass whooping.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
hey, if you love your kid, you don't want him to do wrong either. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to call out your kid and say, hey, you're doing this wrong, and I don't approve of it, or you know,
yep,
that's what us as parents are there to guide our children, to tell them when they're right and when they're wrong. I mean, even up until I was 30 years old, my mom told me, hey, you're doing this wrong or you're doing that wrong. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So you can't say you love your kid if you don't have that in you to tell them, hey, um, you're doing this wrong and that's not right, or
yep,
go to the point of like, hey, an ass whooping, I think would be justifiable for this action, right? So
absolutely.
you know what I mean. So I'm glad she did that. You know what I mean. I'm
Hmm.
glad she did that, because maybe he realized that she cares. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
he could have, not only could he have killed other people, he would have destroyed his own life.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, maybe worse, he wouldn't have been here no more.
Yep.
You know, and
Exactly.
and those people that are mentally ill like that, I don't think they think all these things through, right? They think, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna kill some people, and I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna go to jail for the rest of my life. They don't think about the people they're gonna be hurting. You know, the families of the deceased, the families that are hurting, the mental trauma that all the
Oh,
other people had to endure when they were going through that, and also your own family. You know, you know, I mean, your his own family. I mean, his own. You know, I don't know what the circumstances behind that family are, but I could just imagine. You know, you have a mom that has a kid that does something like that, and I mean, what do you think of that? You know, especially if there are
yeah.
no signs. Now, this this is a different dynamic, right? Because you know, from what I'm hearing on the backstory is that mom wasn't all that
Yeah. No.
mentally stable and all that
Yes.
stuff. So I don't know what their situation was or is now. But I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that didn't show any signs of any of this, and they went out there and they did what they did. And mom's like, "What the heck? I didn't see this coming."
Yeah.
I mean, and I could just feel, I could sympathize um, with a mom like that, you know, that didn't know. But then you may have people on this end that knew something was going to happen. They didn't say anything. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I'm assuming that the lady that turned her son in, she just wouldn't have been able to live with herself if something had happened.
Oh,
And
no.
I wouldn't have either, you know, I would have done the same thing, you
Yep.
know, and that's what everybody
Absolutely.
needs to do. Everybody needs to come together and say, hey, you know what, we have our own kids that are, you know, plotting to do something like that. You need to say something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's where it starts, in the home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It I couldn't have said it better. And I've watched Dylan Klebold from Columbine, his grandmother or his mother, excuse me. He was one of the ones where she just didn't see anything. But now she goes around and talks about like, look, get in your kids' business. They are your business. Get in.
Yep.
And but she does and talks about the years of guilt and forgiveness she's had to ask. And but yeah, she talks about, getting in your kids' business because it's your
Yeah.
business.
Especially till they leave. I mean, I was always taught that, hey, I'm gonna be in your business till you leave my house. You know,
Yep, me too.
you could be 18 years old, but if you're living under my roof, you're gonna do what I say, and that's it. And there's no
Yep,
ifs, ands, or buts about it. I came from a background on a family that my mom, even my dad's side, but my mom's side more so. My grandpa was born in 1923. He just passed away 5 or 6 years ago. He was born in the 20s. My grandparents went through the depression and stuff like that. They were old school. I mean, they whoop ass first and ask questions later. You know what I mean?
yep,
So they had no problem with, you know. I'll give you an example. I had a cousin that had some disagreements with my uncle, right? And she's my first cousin, and she went out and she moved in with my grandparents. I don't know if this is a good example, but I'm gonna use it anyways.
use it. Yep.
She moved in with my grandparents, and at this time she's going to college, right? She's probably about 19, 20 years old. And you know, my grandpa's like, you need to be at home by 8:30, the latest. You know, if you don't come home by
Yep.
8:30, don't come home, or the door's gonna be locked. And when I moved in, I was probably about, maybe about the same age or a little older, because we're about a year apart, and I didn't have
Hmm.
a curfew.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, that's just how different it was. Even my mom, those are my mom's parents. My mom had one sister and she had two brothers, and it was the same way. You know, the same thing applied. Hey, you're a woman, you know, and people are probably going to say it's biased, and or not biased, it's sexist, and you know,
It's
all
a
this stuff.
different
Because
world. I mean, let's be real.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but hey, I'm a firm believer of old school, because old school works.
it does.
It works. You know what I mean? You're talking about this period where you didn't have stuff like this of shootings, or as maybe as bad as mental health, or you know, just, you know, my grandparents ate eggs off the ranch. They grew their own
Yeah.
vegetables. They, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it was a different time. I understand, and
Hmm.
times have changed, but um, basically
My
what I'm
parents
going,
whistled. My parents whistled for us if we were playing in the neighborhood as it got dark. If we didn't have
yeah,
our butts home.
by the street lights. Street lights
Yep,
come
by
on.
the
Y'all better be home.
streetlights, we
Yeah,
got. And it worked. I mean, we just did it.
Yeah.
There was a respect that obviously isn't there today because we aren't, I think I lost him. There you are. We aren't, like you said, we're not in our kids' business. We're not, I think yes, better be home. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah. Yeah. I came from a very old school like grandparents and um. But yeah, I mean, most definitely, that's. I mean, I completely believe in that. Get in your kid's business. You know what I mean?
mhm.
I mean, I see a lot of times where 13, I mean, even younger than that, 11, 12, 13 year olds, they're like, they have their own phone, they have their own iPad, they message and call whoever they want. They're on Snapchat, they're on Facebook, they're on
Oh,
Instagram. This is
mhm.
how kids get abducted, right? You get these people that randomly add them and they just think like, hey, well, these people can't hurt me, right? But, then you get into the people that entice them to leave their home and
Yep.
hey, come and hang out. You know what I mean? And it's not their fault; they're kids, but you need to be aware of what they're doing, right?
Yep. I have a creator in the chat. Grant. She goes by Granny's Watching, but her name is Jess, and she
Uh-huh.
said that the dynamic changed with social media. And one thing was that Yubo, which I had never heard of,
Mhm.
that this shooter was using and was reported several times, and no one, they didn't kick him off or anything. And um, it is said, and then after this happened, of course, they issued all these restructured things they were going to do and stuff to make it safer. But again, it's too late. It's too late. Somebody needed to be in his business.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. We have to. Um,
But I mean, it still comes down to the gun thing. You know what I mean? Like I felt like, I mean, if the law would
it
have been in
does.
place, right? Because your frame of thinking, your mind frame of thinking from when you're 18 to 21 can change a lot. A lot can happen
Absolutely.
in that 3 years, right? So I feel like if they increase the age of 21, it would at least minimize the stats. You know what I mean? Like stats would come down. There wouldn't be as many shootings. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
um,
I
I
mean, I
mean,
agree there. I mean, that's just many, many studies have been done about your brain and how it, can change in those few years.
yeah,
For sure. For sure. Um, and you don't have to share a lot of it, um, but that day it kind of all transpired. Everyone. When did you know? When did you find out? I mean, did you just have a feeling, or because I mean, we've heard these horror stories about how. I mean, for one, have gotten to know Ileana Torres's family, and
yeah.
they were the last people to know. What? When were you able to find out? I guess just kind of what was it like that day?
The day of the shooting,
Yeah. I mean,
I
other than just awful.
my ex called me when it happened. It was probably about 11:45, 11:50, somewhere in that area. I was I sell cars, so I was about to leave to go pick up lunch and come back to the dealership because I wouldn't take lunch. I usually wouldn't take my hour lunch. I'll just go pick up something and come back to the dealership. And that day I didn't have breakfast, so I got hungry early. So I was on my way to pick up my food, and she called me like, "Hey, there's a shooter at the school." And she was crying already, like she's crying. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And she was like, "There's a shooter inside the school, and Mija's in there, and our daughter's in there." And I just hauled out to the school. I just went. You know what I mean? In my head, I was thinking like, okay, well maybe there's somebody in there, but they're just doing this for attention. They're not gonna hurt
Yeah.
nobody. I mean, that was my thinking during this time I'm driving to the school. So I got my hazard lights on and I'm just going with traffic. Well, I just see two cars pass me in the turning lane. Shoom, shoom. So I just jumped in the turning lane and just followed them. And we were hauling
Yeah.
ass down. We got there, and whenever I got there, it was jam packed, like 3 blocks away from the school. I had to walk 3 blocks to get to the school. And when I went, I was on the east side of the school where
Mhm.
the pickup line's at, and everybody was on the north side of the school, where the kids were running out, where they ended up running out
Oh, yep.
of that building. So I was on the wrong side of the school, but when I got there, there was like one cop there. So, and then another one came, and there was probably about maybe 10 people there, and they were just like pushing us back. They say, "Hey, y'all need to get back. Y'all need to get back." So, honestly, my position on when I got there was, "Hey, I'm not gonna create and make a bigger problem for them. Like, hey, just go in there, get this guy out of there, shoot him, get him, just whatever you got to do, disarm him, whatever y'all got to do, go in there and take care of business, right?" So the cop is saying like, "Hey, well, we're trying to work on this situation, but y'all, the parents are not making it easier, right? The parents are all frantic. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're calling them
Right.
this and that, trying to get into school." And I'm a firm believer of like, okay, well, I'm gonna step back. I'm not gonna make a bigger issue for y'all because y'all got your hands full right now, but go in there and take care of business. So at this time, I go to the other side of the school where all the other parents are at, and I ended up on the corner where the funeral home was at, where all the kids went. And the a cop came on the he had one of those, what is this things called, the microphone thingies,
Oh yeah, I can't remember what they're called, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah. So
Loud thing, yeah.
yeah, uh whatever,
Megaphone.
megaphone, yeah, there you go. He said, "I need all the parents to go to the parking lot of the funeral home. Your children will start getting released in the back." So then I end up in the back of the funeral home, and like two or three of my cousins were there, and then everybody just scatters, right? There's like nobody there. So I don't know what made me do it, but I turned the doorknob to the back of the funeral home, and the door opens. So I went in there, and they're like, "Hey, you need to get out. You need to close the door." Well, one of the ladies that worked in there knew who I was. She like
Okay.
knew my mom. She's known me since I was little. She's like, "Come in, come in, come in if you want, but lock the door." So I locked the door behind me, and I went into the chapel, and I just see a bunch of kids just like panicking, like everybody's crying, everybody's,
Yeah.
some of the kids were calm, but a lot of them were crying. I saw one of my cousins there. My cousin, the one that I told you that lived with my grandparents and her curfew was 8:30. Well,
Yeah.
one of her kids were in there. They were in the same grade, her and my daughter. And I saw her, and she was crying, and I just gave her a hug, and I said, "Hey, everything's gonna be okay. You're safe now." And there was another girl sitting next to her that had asthma. She was like, "I feel like I'm gonna have an asthma attack." And I'm like, "Just calm down, just breathe slow." And then that's when I started telling kids, "Hey, do you know your mom or your dad's cell phone number? Let's call them, let them know you're in here, you're safe, and they don't need to worry." So all this time I'm looking for my daughter, and I don't see her in there. And I asked my cousin's daughter, "Did you see Amory?" And she says, "No, I don't see her. She's not in here. She's in somebody's class, and none of them are in here." So I just go about my business, and I start helping the kids. And we're phoning and texting parents, "Hey, this is such and such. I'm in the funeral home. I'm fine, I'm safe." And probably about 20 minutes go by, maybe 20 to 30 minutes go by, and I find out that Amory was shot. Amory was injured in the accident. And at that point, I'm like, "Hey, I gotta go. I gotta leave."
Yeah.
So my first thought is go to the hospital. Went to the hospital, and they're saying they have a Jane Doe there because they label them as Jane Does when they don't have an identity for them
Yes.
or a name. So they had one Jane Doe, then they have two Jane Does, and I'm like, "Okay, well, what does Jane Doe look like?" So then I said like, "Hey, we'll show them a picture." So we showed them a picture of our daughter, and everybody started showing them pictures like, "Oh, this is my kid, this is my kid, this is my kid." So at this point, I think it was already like an hour and a half to
Hmm.
2 hours. Well, you already know it took 77 minutes for the gunman
Yes.
to go down. So by this, he was already dead, right? At this point, they had already taken him down. So there's like just X amount of parents that have not found their kid, and those parents were all at the hospital. Most of them were. And so then we find out that she's not there. She may have been in San Antonio, she may be in Hondo, she may be in
Oh my
Catskill.
goodness.
She could be like anywhere. um but we were calling everywhere. I had a friend in San Antonio that knew the trauma director to the university hospital. They called over there, sent him a picture. She wasn't there. So we ended up going to the funeral homes to see if they had taken kids there, if they had already been deceased. No, nobody's there. Then we go back to the school. We can't get close to the school. Nobody has answers. So then we end
Oh
up at the
my
civic
gosh.
center. Where everybody, where the Texas Rangers met at.
Hmm.
And finally we were able to calm down a little bit. And they were saying, "Hey, send us a most recent picture of your daughter. Send us y'all's contact info. Send us what she was wearing that day if you don't have a picture from that day." And we sent them all this information, right? So time keeps going and going and going, no answers, no hospitals, no, just nothing, like nothing. And we were like, I was trying to stay hopeful, but as the time went by, it just got worse, right? Like I'm just losing hope at this point. Well, whenever it came time to give a DNA sample, that's when I was kind of like, okay, there's not, something's not right here. Something's not right. Like I'm already preparing myself for the worst. And then we didn't end up finding out until about 10:30 that night that she was
Oh
gone.
my gosh.
It was the longest day ever. I mean, obviously the news about my daughter being dead was hard,
Yeah.
but the fact that the fact that we found out that she was found and that we know her status was, for me at least, was a little bit, I don't want to say comforting. I don't know if that's the right word,
Hmm.
but I mean the fact that we got some news that we know what happened, you know,
Yeah.
as the not knowing is just, it was worse than finally just getting the news and just saying, hey, this is what happened. And
Yeah.
and then when I went home, I let it out, um I let it out when I went home. And then whenever I first got to see her, I let some more out. So um
You saw, I'm sorry, that just caught me off guard. I did not know they let parents see them at all. I am so
so
sorry. I
there was, no, no, no. I'm talking about like afterwards. The first time I got to see her was in the casket when
okay.
she was
Okay.
already prepped for viewing. No,
Okay.
not, I'm not talking about like immediately after, or no.
No,
I'm
I
talking
didn't know if
about,
they made you come identify or they let you do it by
no,
the okay.
no. And what hurt me more was, so Amory, the extent of Amory's injuries. I'll share that with you. She had one bullet, I think, if I'm
Mhm.
not mistaken. She got shot in the abdomen. So for her viewing, she was good. She looked
Oh,
fine.
good. Yeah.
But there was a lot of people out there that didn't look good, that didn't look fine, and that's what hurt me more. Knowing that these people were already in a state of grief, that they lost a loved one, and then they might not even be able to get that closure that they needed. And that just hurt me. It hurt me for them. Because when I lost my mom in a car wreck, and I didn't get to see her either. She was burned, and she had to be cremated. We were not able to have a viewing for my mom. So that part of the death is, I think sometimes it's a little bit more important for other people than others, but I think that's a real important part, that you get to come to terms with the death. And um because part of what I experienced in my mom's death, being that I didn't get to see her in the casket, is a bunch of dreams that I have where she's still here on earth and she's still alive, but she don't want to talk to me. And those are real hard dreams to have, and I have them all the time. But my daughter, I got to see her in her casket, and I got to lay her to rest. And
Hmm.
I got to go through the whole thing, right? Obviously, we didn't have a public viewing because we were trying to keep the media out from getting photos and video leaks and
Yes.
stuff. So we had a open casket for immediate family, for siblings, for parents, for grandparents, for aunts and uncles, uh, and first cousins and stuff like that. So all of them got to see her, but everybody else did not get to see her. So it was just very limited people that
Yeah.
able to see her. Um,
I
but
mean
yeah,
that seems like normal and pretty reasonable. I mean,
yeah. I mean, some people are different. Some people just let everybody come and see them.
hmm.
Um, but I think that's a real vital part to the closure of the death process, is to be able to see that body in the casket, right?
Yeah.
But some people prefer not to. Some people prefer to remember them the way they were. But I know, but for myself, I'm just speaking for myself. For me, that's a
Yeah.
big part of closure, to confront that, and
Yeah.
let all that out. And so but from my understanding, for the most part, everybody got to see their child.
Yeah.
They had a lot of specialists that came to help with configuring
Yeah.
what they look like and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But there were several children that needed a lot more attention than others.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I talked to one of the fathers who said that it was almost like he was glad he got to see her, but at the same time, it wasn't her, because she had had significant damage. I mean, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad you. It's just a horrible. I want you to know like how strong you are. I don't think I could. I'm up here like wiping tears away, and you're. I
Mhm.
mean, Amory was a lucky girl. From what I see, is that change needs to happen, but you're doing it in the right process, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people grieve different. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm hurting.
Well, of course, yeah.
I'm hurting. I mean, I just find myself staring at her pictures for not hours, but for for from time to time, I'll catch myself just staring at her pictures for a long time and just remembering just days that we hung out and
Hmm.
and it's hard sometimes, but it's like even when my mom passed away, I cried. I didn't even cry when they told me. I cried like the next day, and then I cried the day after that, and I cried once more when I went to clean her house, and I probably cried like one more time after that. And my mom's been dead for 5 years, so it's just there's just uh, I mean, there's some moments that where I can't, where it comes out. There's some moments where I want to cry and I just can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So but I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm grieving my daughter's death. It's hard.
of course.
But her mom's taking it really hard. Like I pray for her mom. Me and her mom are not, obviously we're not on the same page right now, and I hate it. Because sometimes when people die, things get in the way, and
Hmm.
and I don't wish nothing bad upon her mom, but her mom is taking it really hard.
Yeah,
She had her for the majority of her life. She gave her birth. She was there every night. She put her to bed and whatnot. Um, she's taking it really hard.
yeah.
Um,
It's a difference between a mom and, I mean, from the sounds of it, as you were describing, you were at the home taking care of business. Like you sound like a very like if something happens, I take care of things and stuff. And like Granny's watching us saying, there's no guidelines or rule book for grieving at all. Everybody does it differently. One question was asked, are the parents who had a loss that day grieving together? Is there any type of support groups you guys that is set up for you guys or
so unfortunately, because of the situation between me and my ex,
yeah.
um, there is a group where they keep each other informed. Unfortunately, I just been let out of that circle. I have I don't know. I'm hearing she painted this real bad picture of me, and she said some negative things about me, and I'm just being left out. You know what I mean? I'm just being left out. I don't know if you heard about that meeting I got kicked out like 2 weeks ago. I don't know if
Oh,
we
was that you? I heard you got kicked out from the school or whoever the board meeting said. How did you get kicked
uh,
out?
so that particular meeting was for the interim investigation that the House of Representatives did.
Hmm.
They had a 2 o'clock meeting for immediate family, and I went in with one of my cousins. She went with me to accompany me to the meeting, and we got there. We sat in the auditorium. We were waiting for. They gave me a book, which is the book of the investigation. I got that. I went to pick that up. They had my name there. I picked it up, and all of a sudden, the fire marshal comes up to me and says, "Hey, your name wasn't on the list for the meeting." And I was like, "Well, I mean, who made the list? I mean, I don't get it." And he was like, "Well, there was a list and you're not on it, so they're telling me you need to go outside." So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll go outside and I'll figure out what's going on, and then let me back in, right?" No, I go outside and I'm being told I need to leave because I'm not wanted there and I wasn't welcome. And I'm like, hello, my daughter died. That Amory Joe Garza, that was my daughter. She passed away. She died she was one of the 19 students that died, and I can't be here in this meeting. And I ended up calling the DA's office, and they told me that somebody from the college was organizing that meeting. But from basically what it boiled down to is that the families came up with who was going to be there and who was not going to be there. And
Oh,
I ended up finding out that it had something to do with mom, um, the mother of my cousin Angel, and my ex mother-in-law. They had me removed from the meeting. They just told them, "Hey, we don't want him in here. He needs to leave."
Yeah, that's not right. That's not right. I mean, it seems pretty I mean, it should be pretty standard that the biological parents get to be at every meeting, regardless of past, circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, and I wasn't the only dad kicked out. There was another dad kicked out. There was another dad that drove all the way from San Marcos or something. There's another dad that lives an hour from here. He's been. I mean, I'm not the only dad that's being left out. I think I'm the only dad that's just voicing it. There's like two, three other dads that are just, and I think it's, but I mean, honestly, I think it's pathetic. I don't want to, I don't want to stop anybody from giving, right? Because I appreciate all these, companies or foundations that gave money, and that put together donations, and people that are making all these arts and crafts and projects, and giving all these gifts and all this stuff. I think it's awesome. I think it's great. But unfortunately, a lot of these people are saying, hey, it needs to go to the custodial parent. It needs to go to the custodial parent. It needs to go to the custodial parent. Well,
Yeah.
in this state, I don't know, are you from the state? Where
No, I lived in Texas though for 6 years, but yeah.
So in this state, the mother gets favored. I don't know if you've heard about that, but they do.
No.
So about 9 out of 10 parents, the mom has the kid all the time. It's just
Right.
hands down. That's just the way it is. You go to the attorney general, you go to court. The baby goes with the mom unless you can prove the mom's unfit. That's the only way the dad's gonna get the child. Not
I
because
have
he's a
heard
good,
that. Yeah.
not because he's a good dad, not because he's a good parent. You have to prove that the mom is unfit to take care of that child. Then you can have the child.
Yes.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Oh, he just cut out. He'll be back. Hold on one second. There he
Sorry,
is.
sorry, I had another call coming in, and
That's okay.
the call's messing me up. So so it's not my fault that this state has has this in place where, hey, mom gets to keep the child, because in this state it just sucks because the
Hmm.
mom gets to dictate the relationship that child has with the father.
That's
Hands
true.
down, they get to dictate it, you know what I mean? And I think it's wrong on so many levels, you know what I mean? And not only that, but now even after my daughter died, and I'm not gonna lie, when my daughter died, we kind of came together, and we were like,
Hmm.
we put our differences aside. It's bad enough we didn't have a good relationship when my daughter was alive. That's just the way it was. I mean, we weren't like, we weren't like being ugly to each other. We just didn't care to be in each other's presence. So it was
Hmm.
like, hey, pick up your daughter and see you later, and that was it. You know
Which
what I mean?
is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. We tried to be as cordial as we could, right? But
Yeah.
we just couldn't stand to be around each other, and that was just the gravity of it.
Yeah.
But when Amory died, we kind of came together and said, hey, our daughter's gone now. There's no reason for us to be fighting or whatever. We created this life, and she's got taken away from us, and we started to do really good. And then when the money started coming in, I started being left out, and I was like, okay. When we first came to an agreement on how the money's, and I hate to talk about money, right? Because I mean,
No, but it's a very real. I mean, I've wondered that too. Like what, there's
so
many people involved. So.
initially my understanding was, hey, we're going to split everything 50-50. Anybody that gives donations, I was tallying them up. People were giving cash, I was writing it down, and I said, hey, and she said that she was going to be off from work, so she didn't have no PTO. So I was like, don't worry about it, I got you. I got some money saved up, I can give you some money. I'm getting donations, I'll give you your half. Well, one day I told her, hey, I got your half, and this money's, it's about $2,500. Oh, well, we'll talk about the money later. I'm not worried about it right now. So I'm like, okay, I didn't think nothing of it. Well, then a few days go by, and I find out that there's a GoFundMe account that existed, which I didn't know that they created, and it's already up to like $80,000. And I'm like, oh, okay. So,
Wow.
um, and during this time, this GoFundMe account had included my name in the description, right? So one of her friends made the GoFundMe account, listed her as the beneficiary, so rightfully it's gonna go to her. But my name was included in the description, and a lot of people donated, thinking that I was going to be able to benefit from this. Well, I got cut out of that completely. There wasn't no like, hey, I'll give you 10 grand, hey, I'll give you 20 grand, hey, I'll give you 30 grand. No, I didn't get a single dollar from that. The Kim's Angel Foundation came and gave $40,000 for immediate use. Here's a check for 40,000. You go cash it. I didn't even know that they were coming to town and they were giving any kind of money. So I called some lady from the foundation, even reached out to the owners, and they said that their protocol was just to give it to the custodial parent. And I'm like, okay, well, all right. I didn't make a big deal about it, but I did let them know, like, hey, in the future, I think it would be wise and for you to consider that there are two parents and that they both have to grieve and they both have to miss work, and you know what I mean. So during this whole time my fight wasn't about money, it was more to be included, right? Like, hey,
Absolutely.
inform me, y'all are gonna have a presentation about this. Houston Astros came in to town a couple weeks ago and gave a jersey that was autographed by, I guess, the players and stuff. I didn't even know they were coming. I just I mean
Oh, that is not okay.
I just been out of the loop on everything. Every single solitary gift that has been given, every single solitary dollar that has been given thus far, I have not touched, not been included at all. And then I'm getting kicked out of meetings on top of that. So, so that's the
I'm
that's
so
the that's
sorry.
the gravity of the situation right now. Now, when it comes to the bigger fund, there's a National Compassion Fund that's going to be distributing the larger funds that were collected on behalf of the kids and Robb Elementary and all that stuff. Um, I am told that I'll be included in that, you know.
I hope so.
But if I'm not mistaken, up until this point, there's probably been about over $200,000 that has been collected in honor of my daughter, and I haven't seen a penny from that. I'm actually have been reaching out to the resources that have been provided, like the AG. They have that CVC program. Victims First has helped me out. Christina Grammy Foundation helped me out. St. Philip's has helped me out a little bit. So I'm having to reach out to these organizations that are assisting parents, because I didn't get included in none of these other monies, which I wish I would have, because then these other resources could have been used for other people that aren't looking to get that kind of money. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we don't look. We aren't a big, but I know we have many generous people in here, and I am I mean, that is wrong. That is, and that was one of my fears with as much money was being donated, was things like this were going to happen, and it was going to
Yeah.
become, I mean, to me it's pretty standard, both parents, it's 50-50. It wouldn't, I mean, even tattoos, she's in the chat right now, says, wow, you have better self-control than I could ever have. I mean, I guess I assumed that everything was 50-50 because both parents would be, I mean, both of you need as much time as you need to take off to get into counseling, whatever you need to do to deal with grieving. So,
Right.
and that is just how I assumed it was happening. So my mind is kind of pretty like, wow, I guess I
Yeah.
didn't know.
I mean, it's hard to keep my. I'm trying to stay composed as much as I can. Right. I don't want to make a big fuss about it, and I mean, it's not going to do any good, right? Because at the end of the day, nothing's going to change.
Mm.
But it's just I would like to see some change in the future over situations like that, for people to consider, like, hey, dads are important too. You know what I mean? And I know everybody's situation is different, but I mean, there's always three sides to the story, right? There's his side, there's her side, and there's the truth.
Right,
And I think from what I've been seeing so far is mom saying this and mom saying that, and nobody else is asking any questions. Nobody else ain't getting down to the root of the story. And I can see how some people wouldn't even want to do that right now, given the situation, right? Nobody's gonna take time out of their day to say, like, oh, well, what kind of dad were you, or did you even see your daughter, or this and that. Like, I'll give you an example. I had somebody that made a comment on Facebook probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and their comment was like, hey, you were never there for your daughter, you never saw her, you were an absent parent, blah blah
oh
blah
my
blah.
gosh.
So I just, instead of me verbally fighting with this, and it was a girl, it was a woman, it was one of her friends, and instead of me coming out and just verbally thrashing her or saying something bad, I just started uploading pictures, all the pictures I had of Amory. I posted about 150 pictures on that post, and that wasn't even all of them. I just flooded the post with pictures like, hey, this is when we went to do this. This is when we went to do that. This is when she was coloring at my house. This is when we went to go see my dad. This is when we went to my cousin's house. This is when we went to go plant or or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I just started flooding that post with just tons of pictures and memories that I had of my daughter, and then people started telling her stuff, and she didn't like that. So um, I wish
Mhm.
people would get the full story before they come to assumptions. You know what I mean? And I understand how easy it is to come to assumptions when it's a situation like this, but
Why?
and
I mean, I can't imagine what would ever make a person comment something like that. First of all, is ridiculous. It's just
I mean, she was just defending her friend, and I get what she was doing, but like, hey, send me a message or something. Like, let's talk about this,
yes,
in private or something. You know what I
yes.
mean?
I mean, that's what people in chat. You shouldn't have to prove yourself. Period. I mean,
Right. I shouldn't have to, but then you have my cousin, Amory's cousin, saying he's stepdad. He was, I guess, her stepdad, but he was her cousin first, saying that he's daddy and he's dad and he was there and he was this and that. And you know, I mean, it's
I cannot imagine. I mean, that whole situation. When you said it was your cousin or her cousin, I was like, I can't even imagine that whole dynamic of what you've had to just. That is a whole new dynamic to have to. And I, couldn't be as a parent, couldn't imagine somebody else saying I'm daddy and stuff. So I mean, I completely.
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah, I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm trying to handle the situation with as much dignity as I can, and just bite my tongue and just let nature take its course. Because at the end of the day, my daughter's gone. She ain't coming back.
you know,
And I have tons of memories with my daughter. I have tons of pictures with my daughter, and me and my daughter had a bond that nobody else had. Like, me and my daughter had. I mean, it's like I told you about the disciplining. I would discipline my daughter. I've had to, I'm a firm believer of spankings, and I've had
hmm
to spank her a couple of times. But you'd be
yep,
surprised at how I disciplined her, and she still loved me, and she still wanted to be with me, and she still wanted to come with me.
yep,
She wasn't one of those kids like, no, daddy hits me, I don't want to go over there. No, she wasn't, because she knew when she messed up that these were the consequences.
hmm
And I told her, if you don't want these things like this to happen, then don't do them.
yep,
And I would explain to her, and she was like, okay. But I mean, I've spanked my daughter probably about maybe 2 or 3 times in her whole life, and I never had to again, because she would listen to me. She
hmm
would listen to me. I guess her mom didn't have that. I don't know what you call it. She just have a harder time with her. But
yeah.
in my
It's
house,
not uncommon. Moms tend to be. I know for me, it's like I can say something and it doesn't mean. But if their dad says something,
yeah,
they know.
yeah,
They
and
know.
we had that relationship, but but we had a lot of fun too. And um I knew I wanted to be a dad early on in life, when I was young, probably about 12, 11. I knew I wanted to be a dad. Not at that time, but I wanted to be a dad.
Right. Obviously.
And I remember the day that Amory was born. I could not be more thankful for having my ex-mother-in-law in there and my mom in there, because I was a mess. I was a wreck. I was crying and crying and crying and crying, and I just couldn't stop crying. And my mom's like, "Hey, you need to get your shit together. Go to the restroom, go wash your face. You know, go to the restroom, wash your face, and get yourself together, and then come back out here." So I'm there, and I'm just on the floor, and I'm thanking God. Thank you for giving me a healthy baby. Thank you for, for giving me this opportunity. I promise I won't let you down. I want to be the best that I can. And I wash my face, and I come out, and then they have my daughter on the scale, and she weighed exactly what I weighed. She weighed 5'11",
Aw.
and I lost it again. I couldn't. Yeah.
And
And
from that day, they said he's never allowed to come back.
like, I just started crying, I bawling my eyes out, and I was just it was hard. It was hard to just to I was so overwhelmed. It was just I was happy, but I was overwhelmed, like, with just like, it's like when that little person comes out, and you have um your life is not yours anymore. You don't just look out for you anymore. That little person right there, you're responsible for that person now, forever, forever. And I knew what I was getting myself into, and it was just overwhelming. I was happy. I was beyond happy. I was grateful for that I got to have her. A lot of people don't get to have kids, and I was grateful that I got to have her and that she was healthy. But I was just overwhelmed. I hadn't have no control over my emotions. I was just crying and crying and crying. And probably about 15 minutes or so, I got myself together. I started taking pictures. I got to cut the umbilical cord and
Oh.
stuff like that. So that was that experience. Um, but like I said, the bond that me and my daughter had was special, and no one's gonna no. I could never tell you in words like how special our bond was. Like it was just I was my dad. I love my dad. My dad's he was. I love my dad. He's a good
Mhm.
dad, and I know he loves me. Right. My dad is just not that affection person. He's just
Right.
not. It's just for him to tell me he loves me is kind of awkward. Like
Yeah.
it's just I don't know if that's the way he was brought up or that's just the way he is. He's always been that way.
Mhm.
But I know my dad loves me.
Right.
But my daughter, with my daughter, I would hold her, I would kiss her, I would tell her I love her, I would play with her, I would tickle her. I was just like she just like I just so affectionate.
Mhm.
She was my little girl, she was daddy's girl, she was and she got that from me. You know what I mean? Because I knew that at when I was gonna have a child that I wasn't gonna deprive them of that. They were gonna know without a shadow of a doubt that I loved them and that I was gonna be affectionate and hug them and kiss them and hold them and when they were sick, when they were just whatever, that I was gonna be dad and I was gonna be there and I was gonna love them and I was gonna tell them and that's how it was with her.
I mean, all of chat is saying they love hearing your memories. I mean, I haven't been watching it a lot, chat, but I know everybody just says, you have a place here to share. We won't leave. We're not going to leave you out here. And like I told you before, any other dad that wants to come forward, I'm in my mind. Amory had two biological parents, you and her mom, and
Yeah,
you both are grieving, and you both um, deserve that time to grieve. And the financial, I mean, I can't even imagine thinking about work right now trying to grieve, and you shouldn't have to. You should be a part of everything that is happening right now.
yeah.
Um,
I I do want to take some more time off of work, but it probably won't be much longer. I already have that voice in my head, like, hey, lace up your boots and get your ass back to work. You know what I mean? Um, I know that I need to take the adequate time off, right, to mourn and grieve for my daughter and the situation. Like, it's just an ugly way to lose a child, a person, and it's something that's gonna be with me forever. And um, but part of me, I feel like has to get back to work soon because this is actually the longest I've ever been without working. I haven't worked in 2 months since all this stuff happened, and it's just weird for me to be home all day and not work, right? Not
yeah.
not to go to work. You know what I mean? And I kind of miss it, and um, I want to get whatever normal I can back in my life as soon as I can. Um,
Hmm.
but part of me thinks I will be returning back to work within the next couple months. I'm not gonna like take off 6 more months or I mean,
Yeah.
before the year's over, for sure, I'm gonna be back at work. I'm pretty sure about that.
Some
Uh,
people just need the structure of work as well. So,
yeah, it gives me a schedule, and I get
yep.
to interact with people, and um, so
And your job has been good about that. Was what I was wondering is how the employers of families have they been decent to work with?
well, that's a whole different story. I was working at a car dealership here locally where I'm from, but I won't be going back there. I'm actually going to be returning back to another dealership where I used to work at. Um,
Okay.
Manager called me and said, "Hey, whenever you want to come back, you just come. Like you just let me
Oh,
know,
good,
and I got you. You know what I mean?"
good.
Sell cars. I've been selling cars for about 3 years, and I think I'm okay at it. I'm fairly good. I've been in retail since I was 23, so um, I'm all about retail. I love working with people. I love talking to people. I'm a people person
Hmm.
for sure. I've always been like that, even before I started working. I've just always been a people person. I can make friends with just about anybody. Um, so I already got a place for me to go back.
Good.
I'm ready to go back. But yeah, I think it's gonna be sooner than later because I'm already
Yeah.
I'm already almost ready to get back to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know I would, well, I don't know how I'd react. You don't, I don't know. The day after it happened, when I sent my 10-year-old to school, I had a mixture of wanting to run out and bring him back inside or just crying all the time. And it wasn't anybody that, I didn't personally know the children, but I can't even imagine what you're dealing with. I want you to make sure you take, no, I'm like, I want you to, as much time as you need. And I know this community is here to support you and whatever you need. I mean,
And
I,
don't be so hard on yourself. I could tell all I can tell you from my experience is that if things are meant to happen, they're just gonna happen, and they're out of your control, right? I mean, you can do all you can as a parent, and but you can't shield them from the world. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, unfortunately, things like this they happen. They happen. The probably the number one thing that I've been told is like I don't know how you can be that strong, and you'll be surprised at how strong you can be when you don't have a choice. You know, things like this
Yeah.
things like this they happen, and and it's just life goes on. Life goes on. I hate to say something like that, but life is not gonna stop. Life is not gonna stop. My daughter's gone. She's passed away. She's not here no more, and I know that she would want me to keep on going. And I want more kids. I want more children. I've and if anybody here is watching this and they tell themselves that they don't want to have children because of incidents like this, don't tell yourself that. There's I've encountered a couple of people that say that this is why I don't want to have kids, because I don't want something bad to happen to them. And you can't think like that. You can't deprive yourself over joys of the world because things like this happen. Like, a child is a blessing, and if you can have one and you want to have one, go have one. um
Yeah,
it's it's like they say, people die exploring the universe or the space. But should we stop doing that? No, we don't.
yep.
um a lot of bad things can happen when doing good things, or just doing anything. So I want more kids. I want like two more kids. She was my only child, so um
Okay, but did she have brothers or sisters
she
from
had she had a
mom's?
little brother from her mom's side. She had a little brother. He's, I think, 3 or something like that. um
Okay,
I haven't had the opportunity to have another child yet, but I want to have more children. No doubt.
that's awesome.
Even before this happened, I wanted more children, but um I'm gonna have more children one day.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm sorry. My one son is okay. Okay, he's telling me he's making Alfredo, I guess. So whatever. That's the
Awesome.
that's the 10-year-old that just does it. Yeah, he's like, no, but I need to tell you it now. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, um,
Interrupt
well,
the show.
yeah, I'm like, go away. What are you doing? He's like, I just want to tell you I'm making Alfredo. And I was like, okay. But well, listen, I don't want to take up too much of your night, and I really anything you need, please just let us know, and I'll be in touch with you. And oh, feel, but would you feel, because there is some question. Okay, that's a good question, Pamela. Would you feel, because you said you want other children,
Uh-huh.
safe sending them back to school?
That's a very sensitive subject, right? I
You
have
don't have to answer it.
no, no, no. I know. I want to
Okay.
answer. Um,
She is a sub of mine who is going back and forth with whether she wants to homeschool or send her child back to school. So
I mean, I think it's gonna be case by case. I have a cousin. So like, remember I told you about my cousin, the one that had a curfew with my grandparents, and I
yeah,
saw her daughter in the chapel or at the
yeah,
funeral.
yeah,
So she has a slightly older brother. He's probably about 13, 14 years old. He wants to go back to school, and she's begging and pleading, "Don't go back to school. Don't go back to school. Let's homeschool. Let's homeschool. Let's homeschool." And I mean, it's at the child's discretion. I say if the kid feels safe, because in our community right now, there's a lot of things that are going to be changing, that they're going to ensure the safety now, right? This is something like, hey, everybody's eyes are right here now,
hmm
and a lot of things are changing. They're placing higher fences, and more than likely something like this in our community isn't going to happen
Right.
for a long time, right? But they are down to the bone getting prepared for school to get back to it. And although the kids might be physically safe from harm, what kind of emotional state are they going to be in when they see these high fences, when they see these metal detectors, when they see these cops with guns? Those are the things that I think about, not their physical safety anymore, because now that something
Right.
like this happened in our community, they're getting ready to to secure the schools now better, right?
Right.
My thing is their emotional well-being. What are these kids gonna think when they go to school and they see all these cops with all these guns, and they see these fences that are stacked 8 feet high,
It's
and they
true.
see metal detectors, and they have these doors locked? They're gonna feel like they're caged in.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
So my opinion is, if your kids feel safe to go back to school, send them. And if things change and they say, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable at school. I don't like the way things are going," pull them out.
Yeah.
If you feel you want to pull them out to begin with to the school year, and they start saying, "Hey, I want to go back to school because I want to be with my friends," right? They need that social. They need to be social. They need to
Right.
interact.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's part of their development.
Hmm.
If they express that and say, "Hey, I want to go back to school," then send them back. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's case by case. You're not wrong
Yep.
for doing either. This
Yep.
is a case by case situation. If you feel safer keeping your kids at home and homeschooling them for a while, I wouldn't expect you to do that for the duration of their education.
Right.
But if you need some time to keep them at home for a little while until you and them are ready to go back, then I
Hmm.
think keep them. If
That's
it's
that's awesome. Everybody is saying, "Wow, thank you. That was an amazing advice." Because I do know a couple of people in here since we started covering this, since this happened, have been like, "I just don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do." And I think that was actually huge advice for. I mean, you are very well spoken and definitely have um, a huge, a lot of good to be said that people need to hear. Like, I think the way you're handling it is phenomenal as far as being dignified, being calm when talking, and um, I mean, I know that. I mean, yeah, you have some amazing things that you've said.
Thank you.
Yep, and so I definitely in the future, anything you want to say, you just hit me up. And we'll do this again. Any other dad, we'll do what we have to do to fight for to make sure that you get what you need. And please, keep me posted as far as I really want to know you're getting what you deserve. Um, and we can help make sure of that and anything we can do.
Okay,
Okay. Well, I
sounds good.
appreciate your time and sharing Amory with us. And I'm gonna share your Cash App whether you want me to or not in my community post, um, because we want you to be taken care of, especially right now.
Sounds good. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you so much, Alfred, and we'll
Thank
talk
you.
to you soon.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.